And for initially the Ohio River, but again, as it drains down into the Mississippi, all these places downstream have picked up heavy rain. The situation is just going to be worse.
Yeah, it's almost every part here has been touched by that flooding with all this rain that's come down. Notice the yellow and orange colors here, 3 to 8 inches of rain in just the past 7 days. So even if that doesn't sound like a lot, that is a lot of water to be coming down.
It's a ton.
Yes.
Imagine if you did a 10-to-1 ratio and made that snow.
Yeah.
That'd be 30 to 80 inches of snow, which would be epic, right?
Epic, absolutely epic. But Mike, you just talked about all the rivers here. Look at the amount the watershed here is quite large, and especially along the Ohio, that's where we've been seeing a lot of flooding with this system here because just incredible amounts of rain. We can go to the beginning here and look at a place like Pittsburgh. We've had 7 inches so far this month, which is about 5 inches.
Having flooding, and you saw the pictures there of crew. I mean, it seems like every single day we're seeing a rescue crew going out and finding somebody in high water.
Yeah, it's just it's too much water, in my opinion, honestly. We can look here at a place like Cincinnati. Now, they're not having their #1 wettest February on record, but how about #3? I mean, that's something, right? Yeah.
And very few dry days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 27 days have been dry.
It's amazing. These places really have not had a substantial break, and one is not coming until this weekend. We're not really going to see things clear out until then. Louisville, this is one place that just absolutely blew me out of the water when I looked at this.
Water there, the Ohio River coming out of its banks. They closed a lot of the floodgates in Louisville to try to keep the water back. But that wasn't the end.
No.
I mean, you got down to Evansville, Indiana, #1 wettest February on record here too.
Yeah, exactly. And 3.5 inches alone just on Saturday. So we need a break. Yeah, that's for sure.
We do, for sure. Not sure it's going to happen this week, though.
No.
All right, Dr. Navarro, thank you.
Very difficult to see. Really tough to make out exactly what we were looking at there. So to an untrained person, they may not have even known they were driving towards tornado.
Absolutely. One of the reasons why this is such a huge threat. If we look back towards what happened during the day on Saturday, there's that storm system coming up from southwest to northeast. We had a line of storms here that formed in red, and then things really spun up here as we moved a little bit farther north of the warm front. I think that was a bit surprising for most that we saw the storms in that area, but we had a little bit of enhanced shear that came into this region as well as a little bit of enhanced instability. Didn't take a whole lot to get these things going, and then we had 14 reported tornadoes.
Right, we think perhaps we had enough shear that was able to make up for perhaps what was limited in instability, but I think these areas did get a little break of sunshine, and I think a lot of people always get surprised because they go, what do you mean severe weather? We've got sunshine. You actually want that for instability.
Yeah, that plays a huge role, and that's actually what's been holding us back a lot this year, and it's going to be holding us back again as we look towards the ingredients for tomorrow. So now, in a place like Shreveport, Louisiana, that's one of the areas we're watching into the day tomorrow to see that severe weather coming back in play. We can take a look here at the upper levels of the atmosphere to look at what is working for it. In this case, with this, let me turn this around the other way here. What this low pressure that's going to be moving into the region, it's going to be helping enhance the wind field, bringing a lot of wind shear into the atmosphere. Notice down at the lowest levels of the surface here, winds are about 11 miles per hour, but you go up to say 4,000 feet, maybe even 8,000 feet, we're into the 40s. So things are really picking up very quickly, but let's go a little bit higher. 12,000 feet now and just a little bit above, we're into the 60s. So that is a huge change from the surface to the upper levels of the atmosphere. So that's what creates that threat here for that severe weather. But notice all these arrows are pointing in the same direction. That means that this is going to favor a linear storm mode, meaning we don't really have that rotation to support a lot of supercells or even tornadoes here down at the surface. So damaging winds are going to be our biggest threat. Now, the other thing that low pressure is going to bring in is a lot of lift in the atmosphere. That low pressure lowers the heights out ahead of it, as well as gives things a little bit of extra juice to start moving into the atmosphere. It also brings in those low-level winds from in the surface, so a lot of things to keep track of, but that is going to be the main threat here that we're facing, is because that upper level is going to support things in the atmosphere. The other thing we have going for us for sure is going to be the moisture that it's pulling into the region. Very moist atmosphere when we look down to the surface here with relative humidities in the 80s and 90s. Dew points will be in the mid to upper 60s in a lot of these areas, which is that muggy, very heavy type of of air, but also the culprit for severe weather in play. But even as you look up into the atmosphere here, we're very moist throughout the atmosphere all the way up to say 10, 12,000 feet. So that may limit us in some ways because, Alex, you mentioned this before. We need that dry air sometimes to get the severe weather coming back into play.
Yeah, dry air aloft is actually one of the things that helps to support the threat for stronger storms. Regardless, we think we will at least get some, very similar to last week. You know, we had the heavy rainfall threat, but we had enough shear that we were able to overcome perhaps that extra moisture, lower instability.
Yeah, definitely. So to keep that in mind, it didn't take a whole lot to get things going there on Sunday. East of Dallas, off towards Shreveport, maybe Jackson, Birmingham, even potentially getting in on that damaging wind threat. That's likely going to be the biggest thing, maybe some spotty hail as well.
All right, be prepared. Make sure you know where you're going to be. I know we got after-school sports practices, games. Make sure the kids have the cell phone to call you in case they need to get a ride home.